Comparison is not only the thief of joy, it's also just pointless. I'm especially addressing this to those who look at other people's art and then feel bad about their own. I feel like a lot of our negative emotions about how we see our own art come from trying to see how it stacks up against someone else's. When it comes to your art, the only person you should ever compare yourself with is yourself. And I'm not just giving this advice so that you feel better. There really is no reason to compare yourself to others. It's not only not helpful, it's really just counterproductive. While it's fine to look at an artist's artwork and aspire to maybe work like them one day or reach their skill level, I don't think it's reasonable to compare your work to theirs and decide that yours isn't any good just because it's not like theirs. Aside from the fact that you and that artist are two totally different individuals living different lives, you each have a unique past and experiences, and you have no idea of the hours or practice that went into creating that other artist's piece. It's also very likely that you don't know about all their failures and ugly pieces because people usually don't share that. The only really productive or helpful comparison of artwork is when you're comparing your own work to itself. Then you can see how you've grown and changed. Growth is not always linear or even visible. This is something that can feel especially frustrating, I think, because one day we're doing okay, and then we might get a little better, and then we might whip out a real masterpiece, and then try to do it again, and it ends up looking like garbage. So then we feel very discouraged, like we have lost any skill we thought we had. But the truth is, I think with so many things, but especially with art, growth is not a straight, predictable path. It's not always apparent. Sometimes you can't even see your improvements until you're a long way up the path and you're looking back. Sometimes you need to just keep going, practicing, and sometimes you might need to take a break. But if you continue ahead, you will grow even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. My next piece of advice is to not cover up your ugly art, or so-called ugly art. Now, if you are trying to create a finished work of art, I'm not saying you shouldn't keep trying to work on it until you have it just right. But if you're working in your personal sketchbook and you make something you don't like, it's okay to leave it as is. I've heard a lot of people say that they just can't stand to see art that they think is ugly in their sketchbooks, and obviously that's your choice, but your future self might actually thank you for keeping in the less than perfect sketches. Not only can you see and have visible proof of your growth this way, but you might actually come to like that piece that you thought was so terrible before. And if nothing else, it might be good for a laugh, or at least that's what I usually find. And since I've mentioned ugly art, let's remember that art is totally subjective. What I call ugly and what you call ugly may very well be two entirely different things, which is fine. This came up a lot in the comments on my messy sketchbook video. A number of people said that they thought messy sketchbooks were aesthetic, which is fine, but it seemed as though maybe one or two people were even in some way seeking permission to create an aesthetic sketchbook in that way. And basically it just made me realize that sometimes people can lose sight of the fact that when it comes to art, each person can decide what's good or bad or ugly. So when I talk about good, bad, ugly, or aesthetic art, you totally get to decide what that means for you. There is no one definitive answer. Remember to enjoy art for its own sake. I will be the first to say that trying to make money with your artwork is awesome. And it's even more awesome if you actually succeed at doing that. I have absolutely no issue with artists making a living from their art, turning their art into a product. In fact, I wish more of us could do that. But I do think sometimes the pursuit of either money or fame or whatever can make us forget the reasons we probably started creating in the first place. Just the thought that you can pick up a pencil or paint or medium of your choice and create your own world is basically pretty incredible. There may be times when you feel less than enchanted with the whole process of creating art, and that's totally normal and fine. And you can have a million other motivations for creating, which is also fine. But I think it's important that you have that love of the process itself if you want to continue creating and finding fulfillment in your art, especially during those times when you may not be making any money from it or even getting those likes. And since I touched on creating art as a means of income, I also want to say that it's very true. Trying to please everyone will only lead to work that doesn't truly resonate with anyone. Don't worry if somebody doesn't like your work. Somebody else will. Also, don't assume that people won't like your work. Too often, I think we try to decide for others what they are going to like or not like, and we really won't know until they tell us. So make the work that you want to make and that's meaningful to you, and there will be others who are moved by it as well.